Today we're going to be talking about Emma's fail focus. Let me start this video by giving you some context as to what was going on, what the plan was, and how Emma approached this session. So Emma was taking Jacob to the Part 3 test. Now Jacob is 18 years old, he's done a bunch of lessons, and he recently passed a mock test. Mainly the only thing that we're looking at needing to develop for Jacob is becoming more more consistent and building his confidence. So he's recently passed a mock test. We need to build consistency so that he can deliver more reliably and build his confidence going forwards. So Emma has planned on taking Jacob to a number of different roads, some complex roundabouts, some dual carriageways. And the plan from Emma's point of view was to focus on planning and awareness. Now, this was because in Emma's previous Part 3 attempt, the second attempt, she was told that she needed to be doing a better job of planning for awareness and building on fundamental forward planning skills. Now, I have to say, as soon as Emma said this to me, before I'd read any further, I was a little bit nervous because so often PDIs say to me, well, I did this thing on my Part 3 test because on the last one they said this thing. And it's like, no. The examiner's feedback on the last one was based on that lesson with that pupil on that day. You shouldn't necessarily be building the next attempt with that in mind. Now, clearly, if the examiner is saying you need to be better at your guided level of instruction overall, fine, go and work on that. But that's not to say that you should provide guided instruction on the next test, certainly if it's with a pupil who doesn't need that level of instruction. And the way Emma worded it just made me feel a little bit nervous that she was building a plan for the third attempt based on what went wrong on the second attempt. And of course that doesn't work because it's a different pupil on a different day, doing a different test, working on different skills. Even if it was the same pupil, there's time in between. You know, the pupil's developed since then. They have different needs. So please take the feedback from the examiner, but that does not mean that you should be doing the opposite or exactly what they've said based on the next attempt. The next attempt will be fed back based on what happens on that day. I asked Emma what her thoughts were, her feedback herself, now that she had time to reflect. And essentially, Emma had said that she was doing planning and awareness as that's what the prior Part 3 test's feedback was. And she said that she felt Jacob had started well, it was going all right, his confidence seemed to be high. The session was smooth, actually, and Emma was sticking to the plan and she felt that everything had been going okay. Emma then said that she could see on reflection that she didn't really stretch Jacob enough. She didn't push him and challenge him enough. And she felt that the reason for that was because she was too nervous about changing anything up. Things seemed to be going fairly well. It seemed to be going quite smoothly. Jacob seemed to be confident, and so she didn't want to push him too hard because she didn't want to rock the boat, and she was nervous about mixing up the flow because it had been going quite comfortably. She didn't want to mix up the flow and change things. Things seemed like they were going all right. But in hindsight, she realized that actually in sticking in that kind of comfortable zone, actually she runs the risk of not really testing Jacob enough and challenging him enough. And maybe the reason his confidence is high and everything is feeling smooth is because it's a too easy of a lesson. She then said in her feedback that there were a few hiccups. So there were some complicated roundabouts where the pupil didn't pick up the appropriate lane, and then that led to issues down the line. There were some issues with hesitation on a dual carriageway. Although Emma didn't specify exactly what happened, she kind of said that he maybe should have merged when he didn't, and then that led to the spiraling of a messy situation. And she said, crucially, that she didn't really stop and break down these issues. She kind of made comments about these issues. She verbally almost acknowledged and stated that these faults were a thing, but she didn't really we certainly didn't stop and talk about it and analyze it and discuss, okay, well, what happened? What should have happened? How could I have done it better? What should we do next time to prevent that happening? And that was a real problem. Emma said that she thought it was going well, but ultimately the feedback from the examiner was that she did not adapt to the pupil's needs. She did not adapt her teaching to the pupil's needs, and she missed opportunities to push learning. So presumably that's probably when the pupil's not picking up the appropriate lane, and we're not really talking about it. It's like, well, why didn't we pick up the appropriate lane? When did you start planning? What's the rule? How did you get it wrong? What was you thinking? Were you planning to be in that lane? Were you planning to move, but then you missed an opportunity? What went wrong? Emma has expressed that the examiner had expressed that she didn't adapt and she missed opportunities to push learning when things are going wrong. Ultimately, Emma finished her feedback by saying that she was too focused on getting through her plan. Oh, the amount of times that I hear those words, that I was thinking about my lesson. It's not about the lesson that you planned 3 weeks ago in your front room. It's about what's needed now. So when I'm reading this, I'm really gutted for Emma, because maybe the key here has just been truly understanding that, or failing to. The part 3 test is not about the plan that you made. It's not about the plan you made yesterday or for the last 3 weeks. It's not about how well the plan has gone in previous lessons. It's about what's happening now in this session, in this car, with this pupil on this day. I hope that that's clear. So, what did the examiner say? Well, I've looked through the examiner's notes and there wasn't a huge amount of feedback, but the examiner has basically said that the pupil showed early signs that more challenge was needed. So early on, there were signs that more challenge was needed. So what does that tell me? It tells me that the lesson started off quite easy. That marries up to what Emma said about it was perhaps not challenging enough, and it was very smooth. What she called it smooth, I'm going to reword that for the examiner and say it was too easy. When Emma says that the pupil's confidence was high, I'm going to reword that presumptively for the examiner and say the pupil was finding it quite comfortable because it was really easy. So, of course, their confidence is going to be high when it's really easy. The examiner said that the pupil showed early signs that more challenge was needed, and the PDI didn't respond. That's the crucial part. The PDI didn't respond to that need. I hear that a lot when I'm doing these fail focuses. We've got to be in the moment, guys. We've got to respond to what is happening in the car, in the moment. Even if you've got the best plan in the world, doesn't matter. You've got to respond to what's happening in the moment. I have a video on how to be in the moment, okay? Go and find it. It's on my videos. This is a fairly new channel, so I don't have that many videos. You'll be able to find it. It's titled How to Be in the Moment. Go and find that if you're concerned about how I can effectively be in the moment. Please give it a like, and I hope that will help you. The examiner also said that there were missed opportunities to shift the focus to the needs and explore pupil-centered learning. So we missed opportunities to build on the needs that our pupil is showing us. So that was things like, not picking up the appropriate lane, which then led to issues, not emerging on dual carriageways, which led to issues. We didn't build on that and explore that further. And ultimately, when we don't do that, we're not basing our teaching to the pupil's current shown needs. We're basing our teaching to the plan that we made for the last 3 weeks in our front room, and it's no good. You wouldn't do that in the real world. I genuinely believe the number of people who are failed for not adapting the lesson would do a better job of adapting when they're not in the part 3 test. But they think that they have to stick to a rigid script. And that's not true. In the real world, if your pupil has failed to emerge on a dual carriageway and it has led to some potentially safety critical situations, you're going to deal with that. So do that in the part 3, please. Please do that in the part 3. It's so important. The examiner also highlighted that there was minimal coaching. Okay, so something that Emma had said was that she acknowledged when something had gone wrong. She kind of verbally acknowledged it, but that's not the same as coaching. Okay, we got to go deeper. Why did that happen? What went wrong? How did it happen? What are we going to do to make sure it doesn't happen like that again, and we keep ourselves safe, and so on and so forth. So minimal coaching, just verbally acknowledging that a fault has gone wrong, does not do anything for coaching. If it starts snowing and I say to my pupil, oh, it's just started snowing, they're going to acknowledge that, but the pupil's not going to know necessarily what that means. The pupil's not going to know, okay, what adaptations do I need to make for my driving? What gears should I be in? How should I approach these junctions differently? What do I need to know my wipers? Do I need to put my lights on? They're not going to know that. It's our job to then go deeper and say, it's snowing. This is going to change things. Let's study that. Let's talk about this. Well, how do you think it's going to affect it? And we go deeper. So coaching is not just verbally acknowledging the obvious. And the last thing that the examiner had highlighted was that Emma's level of instruction was reactive, not proactive. Okay, so the lesson didn't evolve to meet the needs of the pupil. And again, I'm so frustrated when I see this and I hear this, because how many times do I say, you got to be proactive, not reactive? Be ahead of the game. Yeah, you've got to proactively coach your pupils to mitigate risk and stop it from going wrong. We can't always be 100% successful in that. Sometimes our pupils will do things that we don't predict. But overall, you've got to be ahead of the game. And you've got to coach them so that dangerous faults don't occur. But what a lot of people are doing, particularly at the moment it feels, is they are waiting for the thing to go wrong and then they try and kind of talk about it. And then if that conversation's a bit too vague and loose, in Emma's case, not coaching, just kind of stating the obvious, then learning's not taking place, Emma. I'm really, I hope that that's clear. And I just hope for anybody watching this, I please don't think that I just don't want you all to be falling for that same common pitfall, okay? So, what are the main takeaways from this so far? Well, I'm reading Emma's feedback and I'm reading the examiner's feedback, and I kind of wanted to make a list from your point of view. What are the main takeaways here? What are the main points that I want to push to anybody watching this video? Well, first of all, yes, you're going to prepare and plan a lesson for your part 3 test. Of course you're going to. But try not to fall into the trap of, I'm going to deliver exactly as I've planned. The lesson should be dictated by what is happening in the car with that pupil in that moment, not what you have planned, perhaps in your front room for the last 3 weeks. Not even what you've planned in the car with all of your other pupils for the last 3 weeks. It's what's happening now that counts. So you can have a loose vision of what you're going to do, but it's almost, think of it as, it's not a blueprint. It's not a blueprint. It's a loose idea of what we might do. That's what your plan should be. So my first point is, teach the pupil that's in front of you, not the pupil you planned for. So important. The second takeaway that I want to offer you is you need to notice signs that it's too easy or too hard, because it's going to be your job to notice that promptly and then make adaptations to the session to continue to challenge the pupil but not overwhelm them. That's a phrase I use a lot. We should be challenging our pupils but not overwhelming them. And if you can't notice the signs that this session is too easy or too challenging, you're going to struggle to do that. So I want you to start thinking, what are the signs that this is too easy or too hard? I want you to grab some paper and write down some lists of evidence that it's too easy and too hard. And here's a clue. I want you to write down verbal and non-verbal clues that this lesson is too hard or too easy. Okay, so what does that mean? So that could be pupil going absolutely silent unusually. That could be the pupil asking more questions than normal. That could be your pupil making faults on something that they don't usually make faults on. That could be the pupil showing unusual personality or characteristic traits that aren't consistent. But I don't want to give you all of the obvious ones. I want you to grab some paper and write down a list. Write too hard and too easy, and I want you to write as many bullet point lists for things that are evidence that it could be too easy or too hard, and then your job is to go and find examples of them when you go and teach. okay? And as you go and teach, you might find more ideas. Go and practice that. It's very important. I want you to go and practice that specifically. So notice the signs that it's too hard or too easy, and those signs could be verbal or non-verbal. What next? Well, I want you to get into the habit of adapting in the moment. You should be adapting your focus and your teaching based on what is happening in the moment. Now, I have some content. I have a mini course on how to adapt your lessons, how to be in the moment, and how to adapt so that you are constantly meeting your pupils' needs. I have content on that, and I'll give you details for that in just a moment. The final takeaway that I wanted to push to you, though, is that, and this is a big one, okay? When you ask questions, I sometimes think that PDIs feel that if they ask questions, they're over-instructing because they're not letting the pupil try for themselves. Let me be really clear about this. I say this so often. Please write this down. Write this down. Asking questions is not over-instructing. You are over-instructing if the pupil is showing you they can do the thing and you're still asking them anyway. Okay? So if you say at the end of the road, we're going to turn right, and your pupil checks the appropriate mirrors and they do it in the right order and they do it at the right time, and you're sitting there saying, which mirrors did you need to check? What? Do you know what I mean? You've had confirmation that they can do it. They did it. They're doing it consistently. That's when it's going to be over-instructing. Okay, so if they are doing it and they can verbally give you an explanation that suggests that they understand it, then don't ask questions about it. Other than that, asking questions is not over-instructing. Okay, so you should be using questions to coach your pupil to push thought. Yeah? So when Emma has a pupil and she's approaching a complex roundabout, and Emma says, we're going to go right third exit or right fourth exit, whatever it is. And Emma knows that Jacob needs to move to the right lane, and she can feel that he's not doing it or he's doing it too late. Emma is allowed to coach that moment. Emma is allowed to, talk to me about what lane you're planning to position in. Talk to me about, whatever. Do you know what I mean? She can ask a coaching question to push thought before the situation gets messy, before it goes wrong. But Emma was fearful of doing that because she was scared of being told she's over-instructing. You can ask questions and push thought before the thing happens. I want you to do that. When you do that, you prevent faults. Now, if Emma says we're going to go right fourth exit at the complex roundabout, and Jacob is doing his mirrors and signal and he starts positioning over, and then she says, which lane do you want? Over-instructing. Because the evidence is suggestive that he already knows. Because he's just done it. But if you're getting a gut feeling that it's not happening and you want it to happen and it's not happening how it should be, or it's not happening in the right order, or it's not happening at the right time, please coach that. Ask a question, push thought before the situation unfolds. It's far better to manage that situation and push thought before it gets really messy. If your pupil does something that you weren't expecting, and the option to push thought before it goes wrong isn't an option, that's okay too. But then you've got to ask questions and actually analyze. So Emma said that she kind of made statements about faults but didn't really study them. You've got to, when something has gone wrong, what happened? Why did it happen? What would a better version look like? What are we going to do going forwards to make sure that we can get a better version of that? Analysis, yeah? Get the pupil to self-reflect. I hope that that's clear to you, and those are the main takeaways. Just let me summarize by giving you examples of what, a possible pass may have possibly have looked like in this exact scenario. A possible pass is not just delivering the lesson that you've planned for the last 3 weeks. It's delivering the lesson that's in front of you, with the pupil that's in front of you, with the shown needs that they've got in front of you. It is move Jacob on when he shows you evidence that he needs to be moved on and progressed because it's too easy. That would have been a really good, healthy start. The examiner said in his feedback that there was early signs of development needed, and that wasn't taken. So that would have been a good example of that. So when Jacob shows evidence that he's capable of more, give him that in an appropriate way. Don't just move Jacob on when you planned to move him on in the last 3 weeks from your front room, okay? If Jacob is doing better than you expected, earlier than you expected, doesn't matter. Move him on. I feel so strongly about this one as well, okay? I feel so strongly about this. When your pupil makes a mistake that you weren't anticipating, that you didn't plan for in that perfect plan for the last 3 weeks, that is a gift. That's a gift. PDIs are so concerned about, oh my God, what if they throw me this fault? What if they do this? What if they throw this curveball? No, it's a gift. Okay, you've got this plan that you've made. The pupil throws you a curveball. What a wonderful opportunity for you to show the examiner and showcase to the examiner, I'm capable of adapting my focus and changing what I'm working on based on this, and this. I'm capable of, I'm going to fix that, I'm going to make that fault go away. I'm going to make sure that doesn't happen again. That's an opportunity to showcase the 17 competencies. These are, when these small things occur, especially if they're small things, it's a gift. You can fix that possibly 2, 3, 4 minutes if you do a good job of it. And then come back to the thing that you want to if that's necessary. But what a brilliant gift. Don't be afraid of these extra faults. They're opportunities for you to showcase yourself to the examiner. I would say, of course, there is always the added point that there is a concern of risk management here. When we have a slip road and the pupil is not emerging, that's always a potentially safety critical. The pass looks like somebody who can manage risk. Okay, so when that pupil is hesitant and they're not emerging and you're on a slip road traveling at 50, 60, 70 miles an hour, you've got to be capable of taking over. Listen to my voice, follow my advice, do exactly as I say. And that's going to control that situation. Then afterwards, we can talk about what was going on. You know, what were you thinking? How did you lose your way? So on and so forth. Okay, manage risk. Don't allow the situation to become dangerous. If you can't do that, it doesn't matter what happens. The test will always be unsuccessful. And I want to say lastly that it's very possible that Emma said quite early on that the pupil was very confident. There was a lot of conversation occurring. If your pupil is finding it extremely easy and their confidence seems super high and they're talking almost too much, that is a great example of evidence that the session is too simple, too easy. Change it, please. Be in the moment. Now, I want to finish this video by saying that it's a new channel. I'm going to be producing a lot of content like this. Please like and share the content, subscribe for more content, and I will put some links in the description to where you can find more content. We've got some membership only access to content that we find helps. We've helped thousands of instructors all around the UK. Whether you're trying to pass your part 2 test, your part 1, your part 3, whether you're on your second time round, whether you're an ADI just looking to freshen up, we've got membership content for you exclusively, and I'll put some links in the description below. If you're a PDI, please follow our PDI exclusive Facebook page. It's called Lose PDI Group. Again, I'll put the details in the description. And that is just for PDIs to have a safe space so that they can get the support they need perfectly free of charge. And I hope that this has been helpful to you. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video.